Hey everyone, it's Steve-O here from Steve-O's Chop Shop. So behind me you'll see the WR tracker. I've just spent about an hour cleaning it up. I'm going to do the build process video and just basically let you guys into how I went about building this custom bike. I've had a couple of teeth pulled out yesterday, so bear with me. I probably sound like an idiot on the video, but see how I go. I put a shout out up on the Instagram page for some questions about what people might want to know, in particular about how I went about building this bike. So I've narrowed it down to 4 questions and I'll answer those and then we'll carry on with the rest of the video. So the first one is, how did you lower the suspension? A lot of people ask that and I was a bit concerned about it myself when I took on the build. So it was pretty easy for me really, because I just cheated and took suspension off and took it to a local suspension place. So to work out how low I wanted the bike to sit, I strapped the bike down and put some marks on the suspension shafts. I then measured to the marks, and those measurements were what I supplied the suspension builder. I think it cost me $650, and that was including like a full rebuild, revalve, new oil, new seals, everything freshened up, so that wasn't too bad, I didn't think. But yeah, it came up pretty good. The coating on the forks, or lack of coating, I knew that recoating suspension was expensive and I didn't really want to throw that kind of money at the build. So I actually ended up stripping the anodizing off the forks myself. I did the same with the shock body too. I just found that was a cheap, effective way of having it look nicer than standard and kind of gave the suspension a refresh looks-wise without spending $1 million on something that didn't really need it, I didn't think. I also had the rear shock spring powder-coated gloss black, which came out really good too. So yeah, that's roughly the suspension. Also, I'm not actually sure how they do it, but I believe there's some custom spaces that get made that go internally in the shock and the fork, which more or less just shorten the travel stroke, and then they revalve the components to suit the less amount of travel that it now has. I believe that's how it works. I've never done it. I'm not much of a suspension guy, so that was why I just palmed that off and gave it to someone else to sort out. Okay, next question. Did you start with a clear vision or let it form as you went? So when I started the build, I'll go right back to the very start. So my mate Axel, I'm sure a lot of you guys know him. He actually had a XR600 that he wanted me to turn into a tracker. If I'm completely honest, I didn't even know what a tracker was. I'd seen pictures of them, but didn't really know what it was about or anything to do with it. So I did a bit of research. I was keen as to do the build because I was just frothing on building bikes at that time, and I wanted a new project, so I was all in. I started buying new machines, like I bought the welder that you see next to me. I bought some new tools, I bought the bike stand, stuff like that. I was keen as to just start building bikes. So yeah, in a few months passed and I was waiting for Axel to deliver this bike to me, which he never ended up doing, but we'll talk about that another time. So in the meantime, I had the bug to build a custom bike, and I ended up sort of saying, stuff it, I'm just going to go ahead and buy my own project and do that rather than wait for Axel to give me his. So yeah, that's what I did. I wanted it to be street legal, so that's why I went down the WR path. I figured it was old enough for it to be fairly cheap. I think I paid $2.5 grand for it. It had the steel frame, which allowed me to put the old school tank on. It's a 450, it's carby motor, so it's a good strong motor and pretty basic, like nothing fancy about it. Registerable. They were the components that I needed, and yeah, this bike just had it, so I went ahead and bought it. Then from there, I didn't exactly know what I wanted. I kind of just made it up as I went. But I think the build process started with, I could strip the bike down, take all the shit off it that I didn't need. And then the priority would be to have the wheels built and then go from there. So I had a guy on the Gold Coast build the 19-inch wheels for me. I think from memory the fronts are 2.15 inch wide, which is a standard rear motocross width. Then the rear I think is 2.5 inches, so slightly wider than the front. And then it's got the Midas H18 dirt track tyres, which are street legal. They're pretty good on price compared to, like I say, a Dunlop, which is a full-blown race tyre and it's like double the price. So that's why I went with those wheels. Anyway, once I had the wheels on, then I worked out, like I said earlier, the height that I wanted the bike to be. Took the suspension away, had the suspension redone, and then for me, I felt like I had a base to start with them. I had a frame, a motor, the wheels, the ride height, it was all sweet, and that was what I wanted. And then I could just go ahead and get crazy with the fabrication work and make whatever I wanted. So that's how I went about it. Next question. Does it skid and wheelie? Yes and yes. I haven't done much of either, but it does wheelie and it does skid. I'm going to have to go out and do some more though and get some videos because people keep hassling me about whether or not it does it. So I've got to get a bit more comfy on it, put some more seat hours in and throw up some videos. It's obviously what people want to see. So next question. How many times did the bike beat you and cause you to swear and throw something? That's a pretty good question. There were a few stages that were pretty frustrating. I'm not the greatest with electrical work, so I had a few dramas towards the end of the build trying to get the thing to run properly. I had some issues with the starter motor, ended up having to rebuild the starter motor, fried a few batteries, endless days trying to work out what the hell was going on. Couldn't get the blinkers to work properly. Tried a million flasher units. It literally drove me insane, but I was pretty stubborn and didn't want anyone else to touch it, so I was kind of trying to work it out myself. But eventually I got it sorted with a bit of help from a few people. The guy across the way, turns out he builds bikes from his shed, and I hit him up and he actually came over and sorted the blinkers out within like 5 minutes. I couldn't believe it. I felt like an idiot, but anyway, that was pretty cool. So, that's all the questions.
Running
that's coming towards the end of the video. Thanks heaps for watching. I know this one was a bit of a long one and I realised that it probably wouldn't interest everyone, but I figured during the build process I had a lot of interest about this bike, so if anything, this video is purely just for those guys and girls that wanted to have a bit of a more in-depth look at how I went about building this bike, and hopefully it inspires people to build their own stuff. Subscribe if you want to see more. Any suggestions or feedback whatsoever, just drop a comment or hit me up on Instagram at Stevo's Chop Shop. Yeah, I appreciate the support. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to NGU Clothing. You can see I've got one of their shirts on at the moment. Kyle's a good mate of mine and he's always been down to help out with any of this sort of side of promoting what I'm doing. He hooks me up with the clothes too. Thanks heaps to him. It's pretty cool to see like support from people that you're close with. Like, I've got a lot of close supporters actually. I'm not trying to like become some crazy superstar or nothing. I'm basically just doing what I do, but sharing it with you guys, and a lot of you seem to enjoy it. So also I look at it like, if I saw one of my mates posting similar stuff to this, I'd be so into it. That's just sort of the personality that I've got. Like, I'm all for seeing people build and do cool shit no matter what it is. Thanks heaps. Take it easy.